drop me that here or not.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Cynthia Farrell, and we're going to start our post-secondary data partnership webinar in just a moment. I can see that there are some more folks that are logging on, so we're going to just delay the beginning by just a moment, and then we'll be back with you. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and begin. We may have a few others that log on as we start, but that's all right. I appreciate everyone taking time, taking your lunch break to come together to talk about data. Again, this is Cynthia Farrell, Vice President of the Texas Success Center at the Texas Association of Community Colleges, and we're going to be talking about post-secondary with the National Student Clearinghouse. So just before we get going, I wanted to give a few housekeeping notes about this webinar and how it's going to be working. First of all, we've automatically muted everyone so that all the background noise will not be heard by everyone else. There is a chat box for Q&A, and so at any time during the presentation that you have a question, feel free to type that question in and we'll make sure that we get to answering those. We'll probably hold them until the end of the presentation and then go through a Q&A session. So with that, even if you have any questions about the webinar, what you're seeing, or the volume or anything like that, feel free to type into the Q&A. So first of all, I just wanted to give a little background before we ask Michelle to give a presentation on the PDP of how this all fits together with the Texas Pathways work and what we're doing here at the center. So first of all, you know that we all are working very diligently around implementing guided pathways at scale and are using the Texas Pathways model. And with that model, there are two ways that we are collecting data here at the center. We are collecting the scale of adoption assessment data that you all did this in April and the validation calls this summer, but we've also collected a series of key performance indicators that we're going to continue to collect from the institutions to monitor the progress of student outcomes. And so the way that this relates to, first of all, the Gates Foundation has been very involved in the center and for supporting the work of Texas Pathways and our institutes that we're doing with the institutions and with our Board of Trustees Institute. And this is another Gates Foundation supported project, particularly looking at the kinds of data that those who are implementing guided pathways should be looking at. And so the post-secondary data partnership, just as a high-level overview, because I know many of you are working already with the National Student Clearinghouse, so you'll be familiar with the idea that this is a hub for collecting and verifying, reporting back to participating institutions and organizations, and it could potentially have the option of reducing your reporting requirements if we are all collecting that and having that data coming from one source, the National Student Clearinghouse. So just before we get started, I'd like to take a poll and see whether or not, those of you who are on the line, does your college currently submit data to the National Student Clearinghouse? So you see your polling window there. If you'll just click on that and tell us yes or no, are you currently submitting data and participating with the National Student Clearinghouse? Okay, it's looking pretty good. As we suspected, we think that a lot of you are participating already, so you'll have a good idea of what it takes to submit data and data you're already submitting to the National Student Clearinghouse. So that as you're listening to Michelle, you can think about what is it that you're already collecting and what is she talking about that might be potentially extra data that we're talking about submitting to them. So again, high-level overview. From the center, here's the way we understand the PDP and how it works. and Michelle will go into more detail. First of all, participating colleges submit data to the clearinghouse. And from there, so it might be data about graduation, might be about enrollments, about completions. And then the clearinghouse processes and validates that data. And then they provide an online analytical dashboard for you to use. And I'm sure that some of you are already using those kinds of supports from the National Student Clearinghouse. And then with this PDP, it would also, with the college's permission, would share summary reports with different entities and organizations. So potentially, if enough of you like using this PDP data collection, and we may be able to have conversations with CAOs about swapping out using this PDP data collection with the KPIs, which would reduce the amount of reporting that you would be doing both to the clearinghouse and to the center. So with that, that sort of sets up where we are, and I want to pass it then to Michelle Blackwood, great partner with us and with the Gates Foundation. She's the manager of data relationships at the National Student Clearinghouse and is here to talk us through what the PDP is all about. So with that, Michelle, we're going to share the screen so that you can share your screen with the group.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me get the technology working. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm excited to present to you. And as Cynthia said, share in your lunch hour. All right, I got sharing going, I think. Cynthia, can you tell me that you're seeing my PowerPoint there? Or Christy? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Sorry, Michelle, I was on mute. So yes, yes,
Okay.
I believe that all the participants are seeing your screen now.
Okay, great. There for a minute, I didn't think anyone was hearing me. All right. So again, thank you for being here for the webinar for the Post-Secondary Data Partnership. We've been very excited about this project, and the whole goal is to have better data for our institutions and organizations to help you with improving your student outcomes. And so, as Cynthia indicated, we have some main goals for this: to really simplify, streamline the data gathering and reporting for our institutions, and to be able to provide a comprehensive, intuitive reporting mechanism. So we're using the Tableau software for Tableau dashboards to help have that data-informed decision-making. And the cool thing about this is that once you're participating, you can share those Tableau dashboards across your whole campus. So people in your transfer student office can use it. People in advising can use it. The provost office can use it. The student affairs office can use it. So you can really utilize these metrics in multiple different ways all across the campus. And then the other one is to have submission to one source. So one source, and then you're reporting to multiple entities. To give you an example, Hawaii, the whole system, just recently joined us, and they're participating in Achieving the Dream, Complete College America, and Jobs for the Future. So they're submitting this data once to us, and we're reporting to all three of those entities for them. And then our overarching goal is really to help our institutions, our partners that we work closely with you for 25 years, to help retain your students and increase the likelihood of them earning credentials. As we built this process, it has a lot of the same, 97% of the same data elements as our reverse transfer process. For those of you who aren't already, and we have lots of great partners participating in Texas with the reverse transfer. But if you're not already participating, it also makes it pretty easy to participate in reverse transfer too. So who are our partners? We're currently in phase 2 of the process. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Lumina Foundation are helping support this process, and we have a whole bunch of other institutions and national associations who are participating with us. We started with the frontier set of institutions, and they've been helping us with designing, giving feedback on the data elements, and different pieces and parts of as we develop this project. And then we've just recently had, as I said earlier, Achieving the Dream, Complete College America, Jobs for the Future, the State Higher Education Executive Officers Organization, the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, and then also the Association of Public Land-Grant Universities. And since we've launched Expanding from the Frontiership, we've had several regional ones who've also reached out. The Partnership for College Completion is out of Illinois, and then we also have one in California in the Inland Empire area that's joining us. So we can have all different national, regional, or state organizations join the PDP for reporting purposes. So what's key here? The key here is the leading indicators, the leading influence information and metrics. When we think about looking at metrics, a lot of us have looked at 6-year cohorts. So how are they doing 6 years later? But many times, as you guys know, as you've been working on all these wonderful new initiatives to enhance the student experience, that having that data a lot sooner is really important. So having those leading indicators, being able to see, is the student completing Gateway Math in the first year, is really very important. So we partnered with the Institute for Higher Education Policy, and you guys may be familiar with this framework. They partnered nationally with a lot of different initiatives and researchers across the country and developed a framework for measurement. And so the Clearinghouse is using this framework as our beginning process of developing the dashboards, and we particularly looked at access, progression, and completion. So we started with those areas to work with, and some of the key performance indicators, which I assume that many of you are using, that we have in these dashboards are things like the credit momentum. You know, is the student completing 30 credits in their first year? Is the student completing 15 per semester? Have they been prepared for math and English? And did they complete college math and English in their first year? Are they persisting year to year or term to term? And then college course completion, course level completion rates in the first academic year. How well are they doing that? So we know, as you guys have been working on improving your student success initiatives, that many of these measurements are really key to looking at the student success and providing intervention. So how does the process work? The institution and or the state submits 2 new files to the Clearinghouse. Currently, the majority of you are submitting both degree information and enrollment information. And so this would be 2 new files. One would be a cohort file, so the cohort year, and one would be a course file. Now let me emphasize, in the cohort year, it's not just first-time, full-time freshmen. The goal of the PDP is to give you the whole picture of all your students. So fall, spring, summer, all the terms during an academic year, and all your new students would be in the cohort. So new transfers, new freshmen. So you would get a true picture over time of all your students. So you submit the cohort file and you submit the course file. Usually we recommend to our institutions when they're first starting out at least a minimum of 3 years of historical data, but we have had some do up to 5 years. So it would be up to you and your needs how many years when you start you would like to submit. And then from there we take those files, we match them up with all that great data that you're already providing us, the degree and the enrollment data, and then we process all that data and we provide interactive dashboards through Tableau to the institutions. It's aggregate data by institution and to the third parties. So Achieving the Dream, Complete College America, the Student Success Center could have access to the aggregated dashboard on an institution. And then they can share amongst them at their own offices, or you can share across your campus. We also provide each institution who's submitting data an analysis ready file, so a student identified analysis ready file that we've matched up with that combined degree and enrollment data also. So 1 line per student that you can match up with your early alert data, advising data, predictive analytics. For those of you who may be using the ITA that many of Complete College America and I think Achieving the Dream use and the Gates Foundation, you can match it up with that data. So a lot of different ways that you can take the analysis ready file and extend your analysis for your student intervention. And then also, as you can see, once you submit those files too, you can also, for the Sydney institution, spin for reverse transfer. So what's contained in those 2 additional files? We also have 1 other file that's an optional file, which is the financial aid file, but it's not required as a part of the PDP. And we do have some institutions who are already submitting that. But the 2 key files in the cohort file, now here's a high-level view of what's in those files. The detailed submission guide is on our website, and it goes into all the details of each data element. So for the cohort file, some key information, sort of entry status, of course, first generation status, really important to a lot of different institutions, race, ethnicity, dual enrollment, number of credits attempted and transferred, and then is the student academically prepared in math or English as they enter your institution. Then for the course file, some key information, Pell status, we all know research on that is very important, GPA. We get the course grade information, so all the courses the student's taken, the grade, the description, the zip code, and then you mark whether those courses are Gateway Math or English, and then we look at whether the student took them over time, and then the degree that they're seeking if you're tracking that. So for the analysis ready file, it has 50 different columns at the moment, but we're getting ready to add some for transfer because we just recently added a new transfer out dashboard. 1 row per student, student level identified for your institution. If you're working with an outside entity that needs de-identified student level, we can provide that too. But with all of the provisions for third parties, each institution that's submitting must give permission to any of the outside parties for what they see. So then you can take that cohort file and you can match it up, as I said, to early alert, have a more granular analysis for other KPIs that you are working with. The first generation Pell status, enrollment intensity first term, cohort year and cohort term are a key part of the analysis ready file. Some of the derived metrics that we have is the number of credits attempted and earned in the first year, whether or not they attempted and or completed Gateway Math and English or both. And then GPA term 1 and year, we have retention and persistence, which is a key one because we're utilizing that degree and enrollment data. So for retention, did you retain them at your institution? But if they persisted when they left your institution at another institution, you'll see that. Or you'll also see whether or not they received a degree after they left your institution. Many of you who've used Student Tracker may be familiar with that type of information. So what can you use the post-secondary data partnership dashboards for? We have some standard filters. A few of the dashboards have some other filters that we've added or taken away due to the type of metrics. But here are the key filters. You can filter on the cohort term, the credential type that they're seeking, age, race, ethnicity, gender, enrollment type, so are they full-time, part-time, attendance, dual enrollment, status, Pell, first generation, GPA, are they academically prepared in math, English, or both? So now I'm going to see if I can minimize this and give you guys a demo, which I'm really excited about. So for everything that we do, each of our participants would have a username and password. And so as your institution gets access, you have a user administrator for the Clearinghouse on your campus. That person would give access to people on your campus. They would have a username and password, and they would go and log in. Oops, typing too fast. Oh, come on. Did I lose my VPN? Let's try it again. Security timed out me. All right. All right, there we go. So when you get to the PDP dashboard, you'll be seeing some changes here. Right now we have a basic icon, but each dashboard will have a picture of the icons in the future. And then we're also going to be separating them out by the early momentum metrics, outcome metrics. So you'll see separation as you go through with these different dashboards. To start with, I'd like to just give you a quick little show of the executive summary dashboard. And this is one that we provided a lot of different measurements in, so that if someone wanted to provide access, say, more to the provost or the vice president, and they just wanted to get a quick summary, they could log in and see a summary of the dashboard. Let me make it full screen so everything can be seen. So as you can see here, and this is test data, just so you know, the academic year we're looking at is 2017-18, but you can look at all different types of years. And then you can check the cohort term, credential types, associate, certificates, credential seeking, non-credential seeking, unknown if it's reported. If it's a four-year institution, they can also see bachelor's. Enrollment type is first time, transfer, unknown, attendance, part-time, full-time. As you can see over here, first generation, non-first generation or unknown. And then we have, are they academically prepared in math, ready or not? So you can aggregate by all these different filters. And then as you check your filters at the bottom here, you'll see it'll track those filters. So if I wanted to say, look at just the students who are 20 and younger, and apply, you'll see that it changes. It's a little slow on the Zoom, but it will change the numbers. One of the great things about this too, as you look at the different data, anytime you need more information. So the first time in students, if I scroll over, it'll tell me this is the 2015-16 cohort, enrollment type, first time, the student count was 3,926. For retention and persistence, right now I have it on retention. I could change it to outcomes at different years. If we scroll over there, it'll show me the different cohorts and the time frames throughout there too. So as you can see, lots of different tips for institutions as they use that. Now let me show you a couple of other, I have to get out of full screen to go back to the home page, which you don't normally do. Normally you would just click the home whenever you're using it, because this is the demo, I have to go to different ones. Our most recent dashboard is the transfer out dashboard, which I'm very excited about. We concentrated on the transfer out instead of transfer in, because currently we have more two-year institutions participating with us than four-year institutions. We do have 4 systems at the moment across the country who are participating, and all 4 of those are submitting and receiving at the state level. So let me select demo 2 years. And as you can see, the transfer out populated. For most of the dashboards that you'll utilize with the Clearinghouse, they'll have a framing question measurement here. So for any institutions, as you're sharing with the dashboard, it sort of gives you some questions. How do I use this dashboard? And also with every one of the dashboards, we have the ability to give you the numbers behind it. So you'll see details. So for those who want to dig into the numbers, they can also do that here, also with the filters. So when you really want to get in the background for the numbers. For those of you who wish to learn more about how the dashboard measurements are, we have a dashboard guide. Right now it's a little tight because Tableau needs to do an upgrade, which they expect to do before the end of the year. So once they do the upgrade, this won't be so tight as far as reading. So back to the transfer dashboard. So as you can see, the same with this one. If I scroll over, it tells me that this is the 2016-17 cohort. I have overall 90 students in there. Students who transferred out within 0 to 2 years, there were 77 of them. If I wanted to change that transferred within a certain number of years, I could go up here and say, of the students who transferred out between 4 and 6 years, how many were there? And then the numbers would change. So test data, so it's not there. So we'll go back to 2 to 3 years. And as you can see, this is credential earned post-transfer by overall. So we can look at how many students who were at this institution who transferred out who got the different degrees. And so this is associate, and this is bachelor's, and we're not showing any certificates at the moment because that color would be blue. And then total out transfer, transfer out credential earned by cohort institution. So did they get a credential earned at your institution before they transferred out, and what types of credentials and what is the percentage? So we're really very excited about this one. And I think I'll try and show you one more, and then we'll get back to the presentation, unless there's any request to see a particular KPI. As you can see right now, we have the credit accumulation rate, the credit completion ratio. We have a gateway dashboard, so math and English, enrollment, retention and persistence, time to credential and credentials conferred, and then transfer outcomes and an executive summary. So I think I'll go with the gateway. Cynthia, you let me know if anybody would like to see a different one.
Not yet. So we have a couple of questions,
Okay.
but no particular dashboard requests.
Okay, so for the gateway here, you'll see we have a framing question. It helps people think about how to use the dashboard. So the first two questions is, what proportion of your students are starting college on the right track by completing required gateway math and English? So if I wanted to see how many students out of all these cohorts who were academically prepared in English, I would go over and click Ready in English and hit Apply. And then it'll change. And so for my 2012 cohort, it shows me that there was 4,327 count and 1,096 were had their course completed by the cohort, and that's 25.3%. If I wanted to just look at males, I could go look at males. So out of all the students who were ready in English, and the males, I can then look at that and look at the different cohort years. If I wanted to disaggregate that even more, let's say by Black males, then I can do that also. Each of these dashboards, as you go through the filters, you can export them into a PDF or a PowerPoint. And one of the key things about that to remember, which is the reason we have this at the bottom and it'll show up on the dashboard, is when you filter, you need to remember what you're filtering for. So when it comes out in the reports, you can see that too. So it's really great. On the gateway, it also shows gateway not completed overall. The other thing that you can do that we have, as well as the filters, is select a dimension. For those who have used Tableau, dimensions are something that stays throughout the whole dashboard as you filter. So I've selected race ethnicity. Let me get all my other filters back so you can see the full dashboard. I think I have all on, nope, I still have Black selected. Let me change that to all. So now the dimension is race ethnicity. And as you can see, this has changed. You can still scroll over. But let's say that I want to look at attendance types for all race and ethnicity categories. I could go up here and go, okay, I want to look at my part-time students who have gateway completions. And so I've chosen part-time and I've looked at race by ethnicity, and I want to look at just the students who are not ready in math and what are their percentages and numbers. So the really great thing about this dashboard and all of them is you can really slice and dice the data to get down to certain types of populations in which you're looking at, are they being successful in gateway math or English or both? All right, before I go back, let me get out of the full screen again and go back to the dashboard and remind them which ones we currently have. Now, we just added the transfer. The next process that we're working on is benchmarking. As we get enough institutions participating, then we can look at the types of benchmarking. And so I am soliciting at this time suggestions for benchmarking. As we are working on that, we will start with probably these dashboards, and then as we expand and add other dashboards, you will see them. So as a reminder, we have credit accumulation rate, credit completion ratio, gateway, time to credential, credentials conferred, retention and persistence, enrollment, transfer out, outcomes, and executive summary. So is there any questions about wanting to see a particular dashboard at this moment, Cynthia?
So Michelle, yes, we do actually. There's a request for two of them. If you could click on the enrollment dashboard and the outcomes dashboards.
Okay. Screen. All right, so as you can see, this one also has the same filters, but for this one, because we knew enrollment is pretty consistent across the country and knowledge about it, we did not add a framing question. So The most recent cohort is what it defaults to at the top. So for this test data, the 2017-18 cohort total enrollment was 9,061. Cohort first time was 4,318. Cohort transfer in was 4,743. And then by enrollment type, as you can see here, we can scroll over and then enrollment overall. And the cool thing about the enrollment one too is you can also do the same thing, select a dimension. So if I wanted to look at gender, it would switch to male, female, or unknown. And then I can filter with all the different filters too. And then, let's see, what else would we want to see? You could also do the same thing for math and English. So all the same filters fall within the dimensions. And then what was the other one, Cynthia? I think you said outcomes.
The other one, yes, that's right, outcomes.
All right. And on our website for each of these dashboards, we have a 3-minute video with one of our research associates who walks each of the video through every little piece and part of each of the dashboards. So if you're referring colleagues to it, that would be a great place for them to go and see these different dashboards. And as I said, it's about a 3-minute video per dashboard. Let me get it on full screen. Now you can see everything well. So then the outcomes is similar to the other one. We have a framing question here. What proportion of your students have earned a credential and what types of credentials are they earning? So you can select a cohort down here and outcomes by overall, outcomes by cohort, or you can also filter. The other thing is outcomes by 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, or 8 years. So as you participate and put historical data over time, you can look at the different time frames. Same thing for the dimensions. So let's say that I wanted to stick with the one I did earlier and have gender. I think it did it. Yes. Completion rates by gender, outcomes by gender. You'll notice in a lot of the different boxes when you change either a filter or a dimension, it will tell you which one you've changed here. So let's say, just to give you an example, you can go to race ethnicity. And this will be outcomes by race ethnicity, completion rates by race ethnicity. So you can do a whole dimension for the whole thing, or you can do filters. All right, is there any other dashboards that, oh, I did forget one thing. The really great thing for some of the dashboards, and outcomes is one of them, there is a subgroup gap analysis. So if you want to look at particular groups and then filter on subgroup gaps, let me see if I can get it to work. So then you can see a gap analysis between certain measurements that you're looking at. The majority of the dashboards, if it lends itself towards a subgroup gap analysis, that you can get a gap analysis. So here you have the 2012-13 cohort, enrollment type first time, completion rate is 11.4%, it's a 10.3% gap. It's test data, so it's not quite as easy to look at when we have real data. It makes a little more sense. But as you can see, you can have a gap analysis, which is really nice. You can choose from the different filters, and then you can have the dimensions. So that's really great. All right. So let me get back to the PowerPoint. So where can you go for resources? If you go to the Clearinghouse's website and under colleges and universities, you look at the Postsecondary Data Partnership, there's a couple of different things you'll see. At the top, it's sort of, if you want to share with your colleagues how the PDP works, which key performance indicators we have, a little example of what the dashboards are. A high level FAQs is at the top, and then the dashboard video tours are also at the top. But on the right-hand side are some really great resources that I think you'll definitely want to share. One is the submission guide, and that goes over all the different data elements that we're getting in those two files and the requirements for those data elements. We also have a data submission FAQ. As we worked with our institutions and we've gotten questions and suggestions from them, we put that in the FAQ. We do have a data dictionary for the analysis ready file, and so that's over here on the right-hand side. And then one that's really critical as you're taking a look at participating, it's called the PDP KPIs by critical data elements. So we know for some of our state level systems who are submitting that sometimes they've not had every last one of the key data elements for the KPIs. A good example is the student academically prepared in math or English, or which are the gateway courses? That's been one of the ones we've seen at the state or system level. Also, as I'm talking about the state or system level, one thing that you need to be aware of, because I know there are districts in the 2 years for Texas, that we do have a system roll-up too. So for example, if you're under a district or a system and you have 4 or 5 different campuses that you're looking at, you'll get to see each campus aggregated by campus, but then you'll also get to see a system roll-up. So you'll get to see, I'll say, 5 campuses that are underneath your system rolled up into one. So you can compare the system to an individual institution. So a summary of the benefits. Access to interactive business analytics tools through Tableau, and we use the web server, so it's free to your institutions to use the Tableau. You don't have to go out and purchase the software. Currently, we have the 8 key performance indicators for the majority of the early momentum metrics. We have a transfer out dashboard, the executive summary dashboard, a system roll-up. Then you can disaggregate the data by a lot of different filters and be able to drill down into certain populations. And the other key thing is this is really going to, over time, alleviate the burden on the institutions reporting to multiple entities. That example I gave earlier of Hawaii, now they submit to us once and it gets reported out to 3 different initiatives that they're participating with. And then last but not least, the student level analysis ready file. So I know the big question is pricing. So institutions the pricing will be based on enrollment. So less than 4,000 will be $26.95, 4,000 to 9,999 will be $3,295, and then greater than 10,000 will be $3,995. And if you think about your partnership with us at the Clearinghouse, 90% of what we do for you has been free. This is a bigger project. We know that metrics are going to have to keep changing. We know that our institutions are going to want more metrics. So this is a project that's going to be always ongoing, changing, and improving. So if you submit data starting in September through next year, anytime next year, all of next year will be free, and then you'll have 6 months into the following year. So as long as you submit data by December 31st, 2020, you'll have through July 2021 before you'll have to start paying as an institution. So a pretty good deal. You get to start off participating for free. And then from there, it'll be this small amount per institution. And if you're participating in Student Tracker Premium already, or you're looking at Student Tracker Premium, the premium by participating in PDP will get a 50% discount. So, questions?
Okay, we have a couple. So we were just talking about pricing. Are those per year prices?
It's an annual price, yes.
Annual price. Okay, very good. And so the way that it's free in that first year, if they get started, that's the sort of the Gates Foundation opportunity. Is that correct?
Yes. So part of our working with the Gates Foundation and caring about our institutions, using it, liking it, helping us improvement. If you're an early adopter, guess what? There's more dashboards coming. You can give us your input with all the other institutions who are participating, because we really care about having it so that the institutions will utilize it. So right now, I just last week from community college in North Carolina, I got a long list of things that she thought would be interesting for us to take a look at and choose. So as we're working on this phase 2 and improving, if you're an early adopter, you get to give us suggestions on how to improve it, as well as utilize it for free.
Very cool. All right, some other questions then. Can institutions export this data, export the details out of the dashboard?
Yeah, so they can either get the detail file with the numbers behind it. You can do that into a PDF or to PowerPoint. Right now, I think there's an issue with Excel, but I'm not positive. I'd have to confirm that. Same thing with the reports or the subgroup gap. All of those can be exported out into a PDF.
Cool. All right. Another question about the data. How does the PDP system answer questions that are specific for individual initiatives that are important to Texas institutions, such as success in a co-requisite course or universal FAFSA completion? Does this system have a mechanism for incorporating new variables that are institution specific?
We do expect to add new variables. One of the goals, though, is to try to have some consistency nationwide. So long term, we hope to be able to provide to institutions the ability to possibly customize some data elements. But right now, as this is only phase 2 of the process, we're trying to keep some standards across the country. And that's the other things with the third parties. So the PDP is working with those different initiatives, so CCA, JFF, ATD, SHIO, to have consistency among them accepting these standards. So as we work with the institutions on standards and the metrics, we're also working with the initiatives. We have 2 advisory boards, one for institutions and state systems, and then one for national organizations and initiatives that we're working with. So we meet with them several times a year to say, here's what's coming new, give us your feedback, what are you going to need, so that you will be willing to accept these reports.
Thank you. A couple of other questions. Where can you view comparable institutions? We know you have all different kinds of institutions from all over the country in your database. How can they look at like some peer institutions? And a related question, will benchmarks for peer institutions be provided along with institutional data?
So that's our next step, is to work on benchmarking. And that's the reason I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to make suggestions on how we go about doing that, we'll have to start one way and then add as we go along. We will start with the current metrics for the benchmarking. We know that 2 years want to look at other 2 years, so we're trying to determine the best ones to start with. We will not be able to give an institution the comparison of another institution unless you're a part of that state organization or agency that has authorization, if that makes sense. So when the benchmarking comes into play, it'll be, which we're still working on determining. So we might expect that there might be state level, there might be 2-year level, there might be Carnegie level. We're still working on that. The goal is to have the benchmarking started by the end of December. So like I said, if you want to give us input on what you think some of the benchmarking should look like, please send me an email and we'll be happy to take that into consideration. But comparing, like if you wanted to go in and choose 2 other community colleges within the state or out of the state that's similar to your size and compare it to, we can't do that. Our legal agreement.
Got it. Okay, participants, I have 3 more questions. So if you have one, be sure to go ahead and start typing it in now. So back to Michelle, how current is the data?
So most of our institutions right now, especially the Frontier set, have given us 6 years, and then at the end of each semester, twice a year. So after fall semester and after spring semester through summer, they do it once end of term processing is done. So our next data window opens in September, and they'll be putting in both spring and summer data for this past spring and summer. Did I say that right? Yeah. So we have historical data on the institutions, and then the next semester they put it in. Okay. And then when we open it in September, they can also do historical data. So we have new institutions coming on board who are already submitting. They'll be submitting historical data in September along with their current data.
Okay, so in September, they give you the data for the previous spring. When does that data become available on the dashboard?
So we're still working on that, but we're hoping that we're working on some mechanisms right now to lower the time frame. Probably for the ones who submit September, October, November, it might be January before they get the dashboards, but by next year when we finish all the different pieces and parts, it'll be much sooner.
Okay. All right, another pricing question. Would the districts, would the cost of using a dashboard be that one set price from that list, or would the multiple colleges have separate pricing?
So if a district has separate independent institutions, so they're not branch campuses, it would be a combination of the different institutions together. Does that make sense?
Could you give me an example?
So let's say you had 3 different institutions and they fell under these 3 categories. So then you would add up the $26.95, the $32.95, and the $39.95.
I see.
And then depending on sort of the needs of the district or how big the district is, we can have discussions regarding that.
Got it. All right, I'm down to the last question then for you, Michelle. Is this presentation being recorded? So I know the answer to that is yes. And will the slides be available to share with our IR offices? I know the answer to that, and that's yes. And I will add that Michelle has agreed to do another webinar where we will invite all of your IR directors through the TARE Association. We're going to send out an invitation so that all of your IR directors can come and be on a webinar where we can really take a deeper dive into the definitions of the data elements. I'm sure they will have lots of other questions about that. Anything you want to add to that, Michelle?
Yeah, I'll probably go into a little more detail of the functionality. A lot of times the IR folks get into the questions of security and how their people get access and submitting the data, how long it takes an institution to develop and set up the data, those kind of questions.
Okay. We do have one other question. Is the enrollment figure for pricing based on fall or whole academic year?
For some reason or other, I'm drawing a blank. I know it's the FTEs, but I don't remember. I think it's the academic year. But I can get that question for you, Cynthia. And
the whole academic year. Okay.
My head just went blank. I was like, because I'm used to thinking I think it's the whole academic year. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that might make a big difference in the pricing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get that question answered, and we'll at least share it on the next webinar, if not before. I don't see any other questions, so while I'm wrapping up here, if you have a question, type it in real fast. Otherwise, I will just tell you that both the slides and the recording of the webinar will be on the Texas Success Center website. And you know, when you go there, if you go to our events page, there's lots of things you can access there. We'll put this on the events page with attachments to those two for all of you. Well, seeing no other questions, I appreciate, Michelle. Thank you so very much for coming and sharing with us the opportunity to participate and learn about the PDP. I saw that you had a full set of resources that folks can go out and look at to learn more about next steps, and I'm sure they'll do that. And with that, I'll turn you back to your lunch hour and say thank you for joining us. So thank you and goodbye.
All right, thank you.